Can't start without my clerk. Where'd she go? Aha. I said, where's my clerk? It's time to bring this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. It's a beautiful day outside. There was some rain in Delhi, so I guess Delhi is more blessed than the rest of us, I guess. Anyway, before we start, I'd like to make sure that you turn your telephones or your whatever down to low or vibrate in case you have any, we don't want to hear any interruptions. Making sure that you have them either turned off or not used. We are starting the meeting with the ceremonial activities. We first have the honor of recognizing Colleen Coons, Senior Administrative Coordinator, and congratulate Colleen on her retirement. I'm going to call the county manager and the mayor up to do the presentation. Colleen? Well, I was hoping you were coming up.
Okay, we're starting off with a hug. So I'm new here, and I want to say that while Colleen spent 31 years, she made me feel enormously welcome, and whatever I figured out, I owe largely to her. Properly, Colleen's got 31 years of municipal service to this community. She started with the town of Simcoe, and she, of course, now ends with the county of Norfolk, but this community has been her life's work, and she has a lot to be proud about when she looks back at her accomplishments. Her job goes well beyond being the senior administrative assistant, although that title here in Norfolk encompasses a heck of a lot. She runs 13 different committees, above and beyond keeping the mayor and I more or less in line, which is quite an accomplishment. She takes care of the accessibility of our public documents. She records meetings that aren't council and committee. She leads the administrative assistant team, so people throughout the organization. She was instrumental in the development of our county flag. And she set up the new office initiative in 2000. She was at ground zero for what became the County of Norfolk, this fine organization today. Over the years, she's worked for 5 different mayors and 5 CAOs. So she's seen a variety of styles and been able to help both the difficult ones and the more approachable ones. Don't know where we fall. But really, it's not so much the work accomplishments. 37 years of marriage, 2 fine sons, biking, swimming, golfing, avid into health, fitness, and the great outdoors, and all that Norfolk has to offer. Particularly 3 great highlights were getting ready for the Vice Regal's visit back in '95, back in the Simcoe days. Being ground zero and instrumental in 2000 in setting up what became Norfolk County administration with Bill Alcock at the time. And more recently, being here in 2010 for the fire, and instrumental both in that day and from the emergency management perspective, getting people out safely, and then in the months, and as I understand it, years afterwards of the rebuild and all the effort that went in there. So congratulations on a wonderful career, and thank you.
Thank you. We'll end with a hug, too.
End it with a hug.
Is Friday your last day, Colleen? Friday?
I'm going to give you a bit of time. I'll be here some half days.
Well, there's no rush. it didn't seem that long ago you announced that you were going to retire, and I'm thinking, yeah, I think Friday's the 9th, and my goodness. Anyhow, first of all, I got a couple things to do. First of all, I want to, so I don't lose it, and I have a presentation, but we're all going to miss you.
Thank you.
You're just an incredible asset to this county, and your work ethic, and you treat David and I so nice. We really appreciate that. Sometimes you even treat us nicer than, never mind. Anyhow, I was asked if I would tell a personal story about Colleen. I'm going to tell my favorite, and I know that you're going to not be happy, but I have a favorite story to tell of Colleen, and you'll appreciate this when I tell you, and it's not that long. In 1995, I was moved from Doverwood Public School as a grade 8 teacher to Bloomsburg Public. John, I taught with you at Doverwood. You remember we taught the senior end of the school. And as a vice principal, 60% of my day was teaching this class, that a new class I was coming into was a grade 4-5 split. So make a long story short, I'm leaving kids that are 2 months from high school to teach kids that are 2 months out of primary. So obviously I had to make some adjustments or I wouldn't have survived. And Colleen had 2 lovely boys at Bloomsburg, Keegan, who was in my grade 4 class, and of course Callum was, 2 years back? 4. Just 4, okay. So it's about 2 weeks of school. I'm eating at my lunch at my desk with my 4-5 class. And Keegan, who's just a delightful young man, came over to me just crying his eyes out. I said, Keegan, what's the matter? He said, somebody broke my thermos. Keegan, it's okay. It's okay. My mom is going to kill me. I said, Keegan, your mom is a wonderful lady. She's not going to kill me. You don't know my mom. That's exactly how it happened. So I was rather surprised when you came in at Meet the Teacher night because I was afraid I was in a lot of trouble. Colleen, I have something for you on behalf of the of Norfolk County. It is certainly the well-earned certificate of appreciation, and on behalf of the Council of the Corporation of Norfolk County, I will extend to you sincere congratulations on your retirement. Your service and your dedication, Colleen, over the years are recognized and applauded by all of us. Council extends its thanks and wishes you well in whatever endeavor you undertake in your retirement. And of course, it is signed and sealed. Andy, our clerk, has signed it, and myself. And congratulations and thank you. You want to help? Oh, look at this.
30 years. I think he said 30 years. I can't believe it. I guess I'm older, but I'm definitely wiser. And I would like to thank Council for the amount of training and workshops and opportunities that were given to me, because it was very useful in work and in my own personal life. So I had good training while I've been here. I think that's about all I want to say. I do want to thank you for paying me for a job that I have loved all the time that I've been here. And I want to thank you for this as well. Thanks.
Enjoying your retirement, Colleen. Moving on, we are next honoring Chris Baird on receiving his 15-year long service recognition program from the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators. Mr. Mayor and Mr. Mr. Baird.
Chris, this council certainly takes every opportunity we can to recognize hard work, achievement with our staff, and certainly, Chris, you are a good example of what needs to be done, and you just do it. So we are here to recognize an achievement of yours from the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators. I think I got that right. This is for 15 years of service that Chris has provided, not just to this organization, but certainly in his role as a general manager and a manager here with Norfolk County. And I had a peek at this. This is just a beauty. This is just an absolute beautiful pin to be able to have, Chris. This pin recognizes and celebrates the dedication to public service and specifically to municipal management, which, Chris, you have played a significant part in our county's development since 2001. I want to just say that in presenting this 15-year recognition pin to you, I am going to just quote from the letter I received back in April from the president of CAMA, and I quote, "Our sincere gratitude to you for your continued support of this valued CAMA municipality, this CAMA member and a dedicated employee to your organization. We trust that your municipality has tremendously benefited from Chris's membership in CAMA, and we are confident that it will continue to do so." I think that's a bit of an understatement myself. So, Mr. Baird, on behalf of all of us here, keep up the good work and congratulations.
No problem. Thank you. Moving on to the agenda, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest from the councilors and the mayor? Seeing none, I need someone to, there is none. We're moving on to approval of the agenda. There are no changes. I need someone to move that the agenda be carried as it's Councillor Height. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to deputations. Aaron Chapman, Union Gas, Re-Grant Program for Rural Communities, Turkey Point. Aaron? You have 10 minutes. I will give you 1 minute warning at the end. That's what I can give you. Okay?
Thank you very much for having us. I'm going to introduce Mark Lawson, and he'll do the presentation for that.
Thanks, Aaron. My name is Mark Lawson. I work with our community expansion team at Union Gas. Pleased to have a number of folks here from Union Gas with us today. You know Aaron. Aaron leads our construction and growth operation in this area. Mr. Reimer here he leads our customer service team in the area. He would be your local man on point. Oh, wonderful. We got the presentation there. Thank you. And Bruce Pullen, whom I understand most of you know, who is an expert in this project and is certainly motivated to have it seen through here. So I appreciate those gentlemen being with us today. I will be conscious of time, but I may turn to these gentlemen for some help on the technical details. So appreciate council's patience on that. So do want to go through very quickly a little bit about Union Gas as a company, a little bit about why we're here today, discuss the grant proposal that the province has put on the table, and talk a little bit about what we're looking for from council today. So I'll ask if we could advance the next slide, thanks. Or can I do that? Oh, that's exciting. Okay, so we're Union Gas. We serve 400 communities across the province, look like this one. We've got 100 years of experience operating in Ontario. We're headquartered just down the road in Chatham. 2,300 employees working day in and day out to make sure the gas flows reliably, safely, and across the province, serving the industrial heartland and 1.4 million customers. So we're here today because we've been working for years to expand access to natural gas across the province, working with the province, the government, the regulator to find a way to get to places that are underserved, where gas would help ease high energy bills, where it could help promote economic development. And so we've been sharpening our pencils a lot over the last couple of years, trying to find a way to do that. And the province has been receptive. So it started as a program that was grants and loans. What started with a proposal from us, the Ontario Energy Board, has morphed into what we're here to present on today. And you know, the advantages of gas continue to ring true across the province. We still go to conferences and hear from municipalities. When are you coming? How can we get access? It's because we've got low costs, it's abundant and reliable. Compared to propane and oil, we have the cleanest greenhouse gas profile, and we have the lowest regulated rates in the province of Ontario. This chart here, just not going to spend a lot of time on it, but that low blue bar is natural gas. So it's been low for a long time, particularly against propane, furnace oil, and time of use electricity. Not going to spend a lot of time on our regulator, but we are a regulated utility. The regulator's job is, of course, to make sure that the customers across Ontario, the ratepayers, are well served by their utilities, by the local distribution companies on the electricity side, and by the gas distributors as well. So we went to the regulator a couple years ago with an idea that we put forward to subsidize new community expansion across our existing rate base, to charge folks a little bit, as the electricity distributors have done, to get across the province. And the board came back to us and said, well, you know, we don't love that proposal. We'd like you to think of something else. We support your idea to move across the province and serve underserved communities, but we'd like you to sharpen your pencils and work with the province. So that's what we've done. So at the end of April, the province of Ontario released the natural gas grant program details. So it's $100 million in grants, $70 million for community expansion to move to communities that may not have access to natural gas, and $30 million for economic development opportunities. So industrial parks, that kind of thing, that may not have access to gas and are looking to extend the pipeline. Applications are to be submitted by the natural gas distributor, in this case, that's us, before the end of July. And now the program is not aimed at converting equipment or connecting individual properties. I know that's a question that's come up in the past, just want to address that here today. So of course, the most important thing, what does that mean for you folks? So to make the economics work on a project like this, we see there being three real pillars. So the first, we're going to look for government aid. So we are willing to apply and would like to apply on your behalf for government aid to extend service into Turkey Point. The second piece is a municipal contribution, and this is laid out in the Ministry of Infrastructure's grant guidelines. So in order for us to apply, we'll require two things from you: a municipal resolution of support, and I believe I've provided that to council. And the second thing is a commitment to contribute the equivalent to the tax we will pay on the new infrastructure for a minimum of 10 years. Now that's just the municipal portion, not school board, nothing else. And we've calculated that to be approximately $18,000 a year. So it is not tax you are currently receiving, and you would remit that for a minimum of 10 years back. And that, as I said, is in the Ministry of Infrastructure's guidelines. The third piece of this is a temporary expansion surcharge on any customers who would be served by this project. It's a 23 cent per meter cubed surcharge on the natural gas commodity itself. So it's based on however much gas they consume. Now on the average household, for the average consumer, we've calculated that to be about $40 extra a month. So about $500 a year. And that would last for 40 years. Now we came to that number by polling a number of communities that we applied to serve back in March. So folks in Milverton and Prince Township, we said, what can you bear? What are you willing to pay? And so this was done in consultation with folks that we'd like to bring onto the system. Want to make sure that this is something that folks can bear, and that's still cost competitive. That will still represent savings against oil and propane, and we anticipate electricity. So this is obviously the most important part. This is the map, and it's not terribly clear there, unfortunately, but I'm going to ask Aaron just to pop up and kind of run through the map with me here. I'll even give him the laser pointer.
Sure, thank you. So the running line is coming down Forestdale Road, heading south, and then over on to Charlotteville Road 1, and then down into Turkey Point, and then servicing all the residents within Turkey Point.
Okay, so we'll continue on, and I anticipate we may have some questions on that. So, in terms of partnering on the application, which is why we're here today, our commitment to you is we think this project has an awful lot of merit, and we've worked with your community for a number of years, and we've conducted the market research and determined that there are folks here who'd really like access to natural gas. So we'd like to apply on your behalf, and our commitment is we'll put that application together, we'll serve it full of the relevant data, and if successful, we'll then submit the project to the Ontario Energy Board for final approval. The timeline on this, and I'll jump ahead a little bit here. So by the end of July, we would seek to have our application in for Turkey Point. The province has assured us that the allocation of grant money will be done this fall. So we'll find out who they're serving, who's going to get that $70 million for community expansion, $30 million for economic development. Utilities then have 6 months to submit those projects to the Ontario Energy Board for approval. And if approved by the Ontario Energy Board, they need to be in service by March of 2021. So what we're looking for here today, as per the grant guidelines, we would require a demonstration of support for the project via municipal resolution, as provided to council, and a commitment to make a financial contribution towards project costs equivalent to the property tax you would recover on that new infrastructure for a minimum 10-year period. And of course, finally, and obviously most important in terms of construction itself, and the guys can speak to this, is a commitment to work together just on identifying those running lines so that we can minimize the capital costs. So I hope I've left enough time for Q&A. I will ask for a time check.
You still have about 5 minutes.
Look at that. Okay,
You're doing well.
thank you. Any questions from members of council?
Questions? Councillor Black.
Thank you, Chairman Geisens, and through you to the deputation. And just wondering, this is, in my mind, and in a lot of other people's minds, a very environmentally sensitive area. How would you take this line down there to ensure that it's safe, that it doesn't create any problems, that it doesn't blow up? I mean, the water table there is only a foot or so underneath the ground. Very high water table. So can you speak to the safety aspect in a sensitive area like this?
So I'll turn it over to the gentleman on the construction and growth side. Just in terms of the technical details on that, I will say that we construct across the province and have won an American Gas Association award for our safe practice on that, and so very important to us, safety, but I'll let Aaron answer the specifics.
Yeah, we would leverage a consultant if we need to do an EA on the running line and down into Turkey Point to make sure anything environmentally sensitive, whether it's animals, archaeological studies, we engage a consultant to do that work for us.
Yep.
Provide us.
Okay, so what? So
Pardon me?
so you engage a consultant?
Yep.
So what?
So if anything's identified, we'd have certain construction windows that we'd have to work into. We'd have to do some more mitigation in regards to the running lines. The report would tell us what we'd need to do.
Okay, so how do you ensure the safety that, I don't really understand the construction. Like, you know, if I suppose a gas line could blow up anywhere, but in this area, do gas lines blow up? They're so, it's so shallow there that they're not going to be buried that deep. They could be cut.
No, we would maintain our depth of cover, whether it's 36 inches. We'd leverage plant damage, Ontario 1 call. So if we're having construction done in the area where a main has been installed, we make sure Ontario 1 call. So if anyone's digging in the area, leverage Ontario 1 call, make sure you call for a locate. So you're making sure that you have identified that pipeline that's been installed so it's safely excavated around it.
Okay, thank you. I do have one other question, and that is the money thing. I'm not familiar with municipalities making contributions to companies or utilities. We don't even make contribution to our water and sewer. That's all water and sewer rates, no tax dollars. Hydro, I mean, we don't make any contribution to that. That's all the utility. Why are you asking us for money? This is your utility. Why don't you pay for it? Not us.
So it's a good question, Councillor, and it's one that we receive whenever we arrive at these deputations. And so there are two elements to your question. The first is the risk is on us. So, you know, we want to take this forward. We think there's merit to the project. We've obviously heard from the community that there's interest in accessing natural gas. But if we don't connect any customers, that's on us. So the risk is entirely on us, and we will begin construction in anticipation that we'll have people connect, but there is certainly an element of risk there. The second piece is it's a provincial requirement for the grant application. So in order to submit the grant application on your behalf, we would need that assurance that the municipality is willing to remit that 10 years worth of tax income. So it's not Union Gas necessarily, it's a requirement of the grant. And the third thing I would say is it's not tax revenue that you're bringing in now. And so I would say that after the 10 years or whatever period it is that the council chooses as part of the motion, should you choose to pass it, we then do what we do in 400 communities across the province, and we become a municipal taxpayer. And so that then goes into municipal coffers. So it's $18,000 to your bottom line at the end of the period.
Okay, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Just to add on to that, I think right now we're paying approximately $1.1 million in property tax to Norfolk County.
Is that all?
And that continues to go up as we install assets outside of this project.
Councillor Oliver.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thanks, gentlemen, for your presentation. I have 2 or 3 questions. First of all, with respect to the municipal motion and the request for us to essentially defer receiving tax revenue for the new infrastructure for this period of 10 years, that amount, approximately $18,000, I remember a couple of years ago, Council actually passed a resolution already to that effect. That we were going to defer potential tax revenue should a new natural gas pipeline be installed by Union Gas to come down and service Turkey Point. So this council's already on record in principle of approving that model, I believe. But I was just going to ask, Aaron, with the dollar amount today that you're suggesting would be implied, i.e. roughly $18,000 a year for at least 10 years, is that about the same amount that we had talked about a couple of years ago, first of all, when we passed our resolution previously?
It would be less, because right
This
now.
would be
it's-
less, yes.
It's less. This is just the municipal portion.
Okay.
When we were talking a couple of years ago, we were talking about all the tax.
Okay.
So as it's divided out between the different tiers or the school boards, we were talking about all the tax
Right.
coming back. Now it's just the municipal portion.
Okay, that makes it even easier, I would suggest, but we'll see. My second question relates to the application that we collectively, you on our behalf, would submit to the province. You haven't indicated what amount of money we might request and what effect that would have on the costing and payback formula for Union Gas. So my question is, I understand why none of that grant would go to offset the municipal contribution, but will it potentially offset the customer contribution over that surcharge period? If we, for example, qualify for $1 million worth of grant funding that right now your funding formula doesn't account for?
It's a good question. And so all of the projects that we will apply for through the natural gas grant program will be for the 40-year temporary expansion surcharge for customers. Unfortunately, I can't disclose how much we would apply for on behalf of the municipality because it's commercially sensitive. And so the province will, post-grant awarding, the province will actually say, okay, go forward, and any utility that wants to serve that community can make an application. And so for us in a potentially competitive situation, we can't disclose how much we'll be applying for.
Go ahead.
I know over the last number of weeks you've been reaching out to potential customers up and down the proposed line, and in particular in the Turkey Point and perhaps in Forestville area in Councillor Heights Ward. Can you give us a bit of an indication? What kind of feedback are you getting? I know for me as the local councillor, people are very, very strongly in favor of having this service come down to them. Is that the kind of feedback you're getting? People are saying, boy, oh boy, yes, I'm okay with the surcharge and I'll sign up?
Yeah, it's been favorable results. Some feedback I heard from Bruce is the survey was very professionally done, taking about 15 minutes per customer, per resident, but good feedback from the residents.
Councillor Columbus, then Brunton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got two questions, and one follows Councillor Oliver's here with respect to the percent. Do you have any idea of what percent of Turkey Point would sign up at this time?
Right now, we're still analyzing that information with the
Okay.
results from the survey.
And, you know, if you get down to Turkey Point, there's all kinds of encroachments and water lines and walkways on top of the municipal, you know, it's all mixed up. It's a heck of a mess underground there. You're probably familiar with that, are you?
Yes, we've
Just
reached out to the water contractor that installed the wire lines out there.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if you're ready to take that on to bury a gas line along with all those other utilities there on those narrow streets.
We are, and that's why we're here today.
Okay. The other one, why Road 1 Charlotteville? Is there any particular reason? Like, why wouldn't you pick a road further north to get away from Councillor Black's query there about potential environmental?
Yeah, we've reached out. I think we had our construction superintendent and the road super out and reviewing the running lines, and it seemed to be the best running line to get down to Turkey Point.
Okay, and would the residents on that road be able to hook up to this line too?
Yes.
They would? Okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor Brunton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions. What is the total cost of the project? What's your estimate?
Total cost, we're still reviewing that with our alliance partners to determine those costs. So we're having them go out to review those economics and costs.
So you don't even have an estimate?
Not as of yet. We're working on that right now.
Like Turkey Point is seasonal, a lot of seasonal people down there. You have no idea how many are interested in signing up.
We're still reviewing that information, and we'll, once we get the applications coming in, we'll have a firmer idea of how many people are going to attach up over the 10-year period.
Okay, and you've mentioned 3 feet of cover. I would think most Turkey Point will be underwater with your lines, and really not.
We'll review it at the time of construction. That's why we're here
Is that
today.
a problem for you to lay everything underwater or no?
Or we'll directional drill.
Still underwater?
Yep, it's fine. It'll be a plastic system. It'll be fine.
Okay. And based on the layout of your line right now, what's the potential number of customers that could sign up if everybody signed up? You must have a number in.
Just a second here. 850, sir.
Sorry, 850?
850.
And do they, when they, like, if you come down the road, do they pay an individual fee to hook up to their own property? Is that how that would work?
So for the residentials,
Yes.
Our policy is 30 meters at no charge for the residential service,
Yep.
and then $45 per meter after that for the
Okay.
installation of the service up to the meter.
So what would that say on an average residential property? I know all they're different, but what would an average cost be, do you think, for an individual to hook up? Any idea?
It depends on the length of the service. If some of the residentials, if they're close, within the 30 meters,
Well, I'm not gonna-
there's no charge for them.
I'm talking to Turkey Point now. We got people that are very close to the road. Everybody's close down
Close
there.
to the road. So for the service installation, there's no charge.
Okay.
to them.
All right. So that's a bonus, right?
Yes, as long as they're within the 30 meters.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
they'll have any conversion costs on their equipment on top of that.
Okay, and the other thing, and I don't know, as far as, what about other areas along the lake, like St. Williams, Port Rowan, what else? We have Port Archie. Do they have gas down there in those areas? Or are we looking down the line that we're going to be looking at that portion of people that will want natural gas too?
I think it'll have to be reviewed later on. There's such tight timelines with this grant program. We have to have the application in by the July 31st. I need the council resolution. The application is rather extensive to get completed and submitted.
Yeah, I'm not disputing Turkey Point. What I'm saying, do you have gas in Port Archie or Long Point or any of these areas already?
Not in Long Point.
Okay.
Actually, this county is very neat. Like 85% of the county's got gas.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Height, then Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the deputation. Sorry, I missed what you said, Councillor Brunton. How much was it per meter after the 30 meter?
Right now, it's $45.
$45?
Right now, and we have adjusted that. We review those costs, but right now it is $45 per meter.
Okay, and so how would people get a hold of you if they, say, live like north and south on Forestville Road? Or at Forestville, they would call into Union Gas and say, we want you to come up?
So similar, maybe you can talk about Milverton, what we did.
So actually, Forestville Road already has, those individuals already have gas.
Okay.
And so it would be the concession road, and so Forest Farm Road already has gas. Now, Forest
Yep.
the little village.
Yep.
Then as we go through, they would be notified.
Yeah, so if this project, let's say we get through the grant proposal process,
Yes.
file with the OEB, we're successful at the OEB. A good example is what we just did in Milverton outside of Stratford. So we then hold a public engagement event. So we come out, show folks, here's where the line's going to run. Here's some sense of what it'll take to get attached. Here's Union Gas. Meet some of the folks who will be serving you here in the community. And then post-board decision, we actually host an attachment-focused event. Okay, here's how you get attached. You should go talk to an HVAC, look at your conversion costs, that kind of thing. So we do everything we can to help people with that process. And we've got a call center that operates as well to help folks with any questions. I've been answering questions from folks with regards to the market research survey, that kind of thing. To Councillor Brunton's earlier question, just to come back to it quickly, the market research side, and I'd have to chew through the details, but what we submit in the application can't be terribly different from what we submit to the OEB. And so what we submit to the OEB is that we've surveyed X number of people in the municipality, and this is the number who have said that they will come back and convert to gas within the first couple of years. So it's very, very important that we have that data available. And my understanding is that that was the result in Turkey Point.
Okay,
Did I
thank
answer
you.
your question as well in connection? Or?
That's good, thank you. Now, you mentioned a surcharge. Now, I see here a term of 40 years. Did I hear you say it's 40 cents a cubic meter?
32 cents a cubic meter.
32
Or sorry, 23. I'm dyslexic there.
23 cents
Yeah.
a cubic meter? And that goes on for 40 years?
Yes, sir.
Is that typical across the province?
That's how we'll be submitting for all the communities that submit as part of the natural gas grant process.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing a second question. This is just a quick one, but I recall when Union was thinking, when Union did its OEB hearing about your previous new funding approach, one of the things that we found out was that the Turkey Point Marina was quite interested, should natural gas come down, in their opportunity to co-generate electricity, possibly using natural gas as a fuel source. Have you had any further discussions with them, which I think would be a great opportunity for the whole community down there? Is that something they're potentially still interested in, or?
So I believe we
Speak to the microphone, Jeremy.
All right. So I believe we've reached out to the marina, and at this point, there hasn't been engagement from their side, but I believe that that'll be something we'll continue to do.
Okay, Councillor Sonnenberg, Mayor Luke, and then Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gentlemen, I'm looking at the map here, and I see there's any number of concession roads you could have taken over towards Turkey Point Road. Did your route take into account agricultural needs, like poultry operations or greenhouses or dryers? Or is agriculture going to benefit to a great extent from these lines?
So a few things that are considered when doing a running line is, for one, we talk to the county staff and ask them some of their opinions on it. And secondly is we look for the least, the least disruption. But yeah, amount of people that can hook up, farms, industry, all that we try and take a hard look at, and also cost. And the other thing that can determine is load, like where can the system handle coming off of the current system to maintain, the integrity of the system.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Luke.
I'll pass for the moment, thank you.
Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for allowing me to speak again. I don't suppose you guys would be running fiber optic lines with this gas line, would you?
It's not the first time I've had that question. We do look for every opportunity, and the gentleman can speak to it more, but I know in speaking with municipalities in the north, we look for every opportunity to work together just to make sure that we minimize disruption to a municipality.
I agree with that.
So in terms of if you are running fiber optic, or if you've got plans to do it, we'll work with them. No point in digging this down and then digging it up again.
So there's opportunity here to run fiber at the same time that you guys run your gas lines through?
Well, we don't run fiber, but if you've got if you have an interest in doing that, or if I know there are federal programs right now that are in the mix, we would work with those fiber providers to say, okay, let's work on this together. Let's dig the trench once.
Okay.
So that in turn goes back to the relationship we already have with, county staff, right? Like, so we're talking with them. They would know of maybe projects that are coming in. If there's some sort of collaboration that helps everybody, we would be open to that. That's something that happens with this project or any other project that we do.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Columbus.
Thank you. Did I hear you say that this Charlotteville Road 1 already has natural gas line on it?
No, sorry, Forest Farm Road line already does, and that's the line
Okay.
we'll be pairing down that road for a little ways and then running down towards Forestville.
So this would be a new line?
New
Okay,
line, yeah.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor Luke.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and Mark, thank you for your presentation and bringing your three friends along with you. I know they've put a lot of hours into this proposal, and that's what it is at this moment, is a proposal. Mr. Chair, I would like to move that we receive this deputation as information.
Okay. Any questions or comments from others? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much for your deputation. It'll go now to Councillor, Mayor Luke, and then Councillor Oliver.
Councillor Oliver, do you wish to put a motion in? Because, well, I'd be glad to follow you. You've taken the lead on this, so I'm not trying to, but I'll be interested in your motion. Thank you.
Go ahead then, Councillor Oliver.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we've been given a draft motion, and I appreciate the mayor letting me maybe bring it forward, but with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move the draft motion, and before I even read it, I just remind council, I can't remember which year it was. It may or may not have been our current council. It may have been before the November of 2014. I don't recall. But council has already informally endorsed the idea of having natural gas brought to Turkey Point in particular, which is the resort community that perhaps is most in need at the present time of that service, and where there's been, I can tell you, a lot of agitation by property owners around the idea of bringing it down. So we've approved it in principle already to support such a project, and we've already also approved the idea of deferring the increased tax revenue that would come from the new infrastructure for a period of time. So in my opinion, in a sense, this motion is almost unnecessary, other than the fact that we have the application for a grant that we didn't have a couple of years ago. So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to propose the following. Whereas access to natural gas infrastructure is limited in parts of Norfolk County, and increased access will provide more affordable and reliable energy. Whereas expanding access to natural gas within Norfolk County / Turkey Point is a key strategic priority supported by Council. Whereas access to natural gas for residents, farms, and businesses will provide an economic advantage, and whereas natural gas access can provide residents on higher emitting fuels with a lower carbon energy source that will help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Therefore be it resolved that Council of Norfolk County formally supports the application submitted, it says by a natural gas distributor, but it's by Union Gas, I would suggest, I hope, or supplier to the Government of Ontario for a grant from the Provincial Natural Gas Grant Program to expand the natural gas system in Turkey Point, and that Council supports making a financial contribution towards this proposed project in an amount equivalent to the property tax that would be recovered on the new natural gas infrastructure pipeline, in other words, for a period of at least 10 years as per the Natural Gas Grant Program requirements, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded along with the joint application to the Ontario Natural Gas Grant Program. Thank you.
So you're making that a motion?
I would be happy to do so.
Okay. Mayor Luke.
Well, Mr. Chair, I urge members of council to support this, fully support this. And Councillor Oliver's motion, certainly we need to put a new motion in to bring the one from 3 or 4 years ago up to speed. If you look at the second page in page 4 that Mark presented to us, I mean, Union Gas, an average cost to heat or use Union Gas for a year, on an average, is $900 a year. Propane, furnace oil, about $2,300 for the same house. You can do the math. 2.5 times. And then we go to electricity, which is about $3,600 for the same amount of energy, which is 4 times. The government has some money, has some grant money. This county needs to be part and apply for that. And it's for our future. And yes, we are being asked to defer 10 years of tax on the new installation, the new pipes. But if we don't get this, we don't support this resolution, we're not going to get that 10 years of roughly $18,000 a year anyhow. And if we're going to start getting it maybe in 10 years, if this project is approved and goes ahead, we're investing in the future. We're not losing any money. We're simply losing maybe an opportunity to start getting some more revenue. And in the end, I think we owe it to whether they live in Turkey Point or Forestville, or they live in Teeterville and wherever. Let's get on with this and let's hope we're successful. Thank you.
Councillor Black.
Well, I think it's good to be diversified and have different opinions, and I have a different one and will not support the resolution. And the reason why, first of all, I don't think that the municipality should be making any financial contributions towards a utility. As I said, a question I asked the deputation, we don't make a contribution ourselves to water and sewer. That's all done on rates. There's no tax dollars that go towards that. Hydro, we don't pay anything towards hydro. That's all rates. Why should we be involved in making financial contributions to a private utility? And What about all the other people that are not being served in Norfolk County? What about them? Is that fair that one area will get a financial contribution and all the other areas don't? Secondly, I think that this is an environmentally sensitive area. I asked the question about how the safety and where the pipes will go. Actually, they have to go in the water, beneath the water table. If there's any problems with the pipes, that gas is going to be going into the water table. Lastly, I think that this was an area originally developed or allowed to develop based on a seasonal basis from May to October. People didn't need gas, maybe a barbecue or something like that, but not for heat because they wouldn't be staying there for the winter. I already believe that this area is overdeveloped, is being overdeveloped by allowing 2 stories and more bedrooms and more decks and more pavement. This is just encouraging that type of a development, and in the long run, I think it will come back to haunt us. I may be wrong, of course, but that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Height, and then Councillor Brunton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad to see this program go ahead, that's for sure. Gas is more economical, it's cleaner, and it's just that much of a better service in my opinion. But I do feel that we would be remiss if we didn't work with some of our local ISPs and run fiber optic lines at the same time. So I'm not sure about proposing an amendment to that, in that staff be directed to work with local ISPs for a combined project to provide a fiber optic network connection to Turkey Point. If we're digging up the road, we know fiber optics is the way to go. Why not do it all at once? We were bringing the fiber optic connection down to St. Williams, which is 1 road down. It would make absolutely no sense if we didn't do it at this time. I'm sure one of our ISPs would agree to it. I know there will be a cost to them, but I'm pretty sure the business case would be there when you look at Turkey Point and all the cottages and things and the potential users that they would have. That would definitely light that up. So I'd like that as an amendment if I could.
Okay. Hopefully the clerk's got that. Councillor Oliver first, and then Brunton, and then Councillor
Thank you,
Oliver.
Mr. Chair. I don't want to step out of the queue, but just to respond to Councillor Hyde, I totally agree with what he's saying. I'm just wondering, though, if in terms of the application that Union Gas would be submitted with our motion, would Councillor Hyde consider doing a separate motion immediately following this one, if this one should pass, and he puts a motion forward directing staff to do exactly what he said? I, for one, will certainly support it.
Councillor Hyde.
Mr. Chair, could we divide the question? Would that be the way to do it?
I think we can have a separate motion with that we work together once the line is in, is that basically what you're suggesting, Councillor Oliver?
It is, Mr. Chair. I think we could simply have a motion that says, subject to approval by the province of grant funding and proceeding with this Union Gas project, that staff be directed to work with the ISPs to ensure that every opportunity to co-install would happen. If that's really, I think, the gist of what Councillor Hyde is asking for. But
I think that's probably the best that we can do for that. That's my thought. But anyway, I have Councillor Brunton yet too. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may, could I ask a question of our treasurer or finance? Sure. Through you to Thomas. Like they've indicated it's $18,000 a year. I don't know if that's an accurate figure or it's money that will be tax revenue for us in 10 years. Right now it's not a revenue and it won't be a revenue for 10 years. Am I correct on that? Is that the only thing we need to worry about financially?
Through the chair, from a tax perspective, yes, that's whatever growth we have because of the new taxes with the pipeline will be presented as a grant to the project. As far as the actual number that was calculated, the municipality wasn't involved in calculating that number. We didn't have access to the information to verify that that's the correct number or not. And as far as other financial implications, I can't think of anything right now unless the other managers have any thoughts on that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I support the project. My concern is I don't want a surprise later on. And here we go, the province always dangles a carrot in front of us. You know, we've funded hospitals, it's not our responsibility. We've funded doctors that aren't our responsibility. You know, all these things keep downloaded to us, and I have no problem with the project. It sounds good, but I don't want to get a surprise here where it's $36,000 every year that we're losing out on. So I guess, how do I know that that figure of 18,000 is reasonable? Who can somebody answer that question for me? Like, how did they calculate that $18,000?
Go ahead.
Through the chair, we did ask MPAC that question, but MPAC can't do the calculation without having distances and whatever formulas they use in order to get the assessment in order to apply our rate to it. But if it is 36,000 instead of 18, again, it's 36,000 we never had to begin with. However, in 10 years, that would be revenue to the county. I can tell you that the taxes for our existing pipelines is approximately $780,000 for the year, and that's all the pipelines in the county. So you can take that as a bit of a placeholder.
That's quite a bit different than the 1 point something million they quoted us.
Through the chair, well, there is a $1.5 million figure here. That includes the education portion. So maybe that's what it is. But as far as the county's levy, it's $790,000 that we would take in this year.
So, Mr. Chairman, if we proceed with this, and I like the idea, but I guess my question is, are we somewhat, do we need to put an upset limit on that figure of any sort, or are we guaranteed? I guess the principle is that we don't receive it now, and we won't receive it in the future. That's the way we look at it, irregardless of the amount? Is that the way we... Nobody can answer that? Maybe it's fair to ask the gas company again how they arrived at $18,000. Would that be in order to ask that question?
Have the county manager first, and then we can ask if then they'll come back. Go ahead.
Just to be clear and to help you in your deliberations, this would be a competitive bid that Union Gas would be submitting on our behalf. And we're competing with other jurisdictions in the province of Ontario, and 10 years is the minimum acceptable. We have every reason to believe that competitive jurisdictions are offering more than a 10-year tax holiday. So this council might consider whether 11, 12, 13, 14, I don't know what the right number is. Again, that's for your deliberation. But all we're talking about is the minimum. And the minimum, all it does is qualify us to get through the door at the province. It does not mean this is going to be accepted. This does not guarantee a positive outcome. So council consider whether it actually wants to up that ante. The actual number, of course, not being relevant because we hope it's 100,000 and not 18. It would mean far more revenue when we're through the honeymoon, whatever it happens to be. I hope they're enormously underreporting and very bad at math.
Well, the resolution says 10 years, so we're going to stick with that minimum.
The minimum.
Thank you.
So, Councillor Oliver, I guess we'll deal with I'm not going to read it again, but we will deal with the motion that Councillor Oliver has read. All those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Moving on to Councillor Height. You want to put your... I think the clerk has it, so I'll let her read it, and you can see if it's what you actually want. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair to committee, moved by Councillor Height that subject to approval of grant funding respecting the Turkey Point Natural Gas Project, staff be directed to work with local ISPs to co-install fiber along with natural gas.
You're good.
That's good. Any questions or comments from anyone? If not, all those in favor? That is carried. Okay. I think that's the end of that. Thank you very much. Moving on to John Valley, reclosing of McCool Street, Waterford. John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of committee. I think most of you know me. My name is John Valley. I'm with G. Douglas Valley Limited, and today I'm here representing Kent and Mark Dixon and their company, ROI Spatafora Group, who are developers of a subdivision in Waterford. We've made an application to close McCool Street in Waterford, which goes through the subject lands of the subdivision. We made that application a little over a year ago, and there's a staff report in your package that deals with this matter, and there's a map in that staff report that I would refer you to. So we made our application a little bit over a year ago. We were at council back in April, and council deferred the report because I asked that council waive the fee for the purchase of the land. So that prompted a deferral, a 1-month deferral. And so here we are back again to reconsider the same matter. So what's at issue here really is that this old McCool Street, which is just a grass field, there's no improvement, it's just a piece of land. This grass field goes through the proposed subdivision, and it has been incorporated into the subdivision. But the street needs to be realigned a little bit so that it works with the new road pattern. And as I pointed out last time, it's a road pattern that we've been back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with your planning department and your public works department to find a good road layout for the subdivision. What we're in essence suggesting is that instead of a purchase agreement, that this is more appropriate to be more of a land swap. That because when this plan of subdivision is registered, the majority of this McCool Street will in fact go back without charge to Norfolk County, that it seems somewhat odd for this developer to buy land only to give it back to Norfolk County. Now, this is not totally a unique situation, and it came to my attention this afternoon that this very similar thing actually happened in the Silver Lake Estate subdivision in Port Dover, where you had an old registered plan that had never been built, and when we redesigned the new Silver Lake subdivision, some of the roads lined up with the old registered plan and some of them didn't. Roads had to be closed and so on. I made every attempt to get a hold of the lawyer who did that, which was Mr. Backus, who of course is retired, and I'm not having much luck reaching him, but I did talk to the developer who says that they did not in fact pay for the closed road allowance, but I'm not taking that as putting that out as a gospel fact. I'm just saying that's what I'm being told by the developer. So, my point here is this does happen. Road allowance have to get closed, they have to get realigned, and in order to meet new standards for new subdivisions. What you've got before you is a staff report, and it is something that follows your policy. And county council has set a certain rate, so many dollars per square foot for closed road allowances. Staff have very accurately applied that to this situation and the acreage involved, and they've come up with $37,500 is the fee that should be paid by the developer to acquire this land. And certainly staff have done their job, and they've interpreted your policy and your direction quite clearly and quite well, and we're not in dispute with any of that. But our request to you is that this isn't a normal situation where someone is simply wanting to close a road allowance for their benefit and maybe to double the size of their yard or to eliminate the traffic or what have you. This is simply a realignment of that McCool Street to comply with the road pattern that's been hammered out